My hat! Before I show the B-main race, one of the things that I want to point out are the oil diff. So the oil diff, if you're new, oil diff is a lot easier. So since I replaced this oil diff, I'm actually running, I forget the weight, but it's shock oil. It's very light oil. Well, it's light compared to gear diff fluid, but it's a very heavy shock oil. Anyway, point is that it's a lot smoother and more consistent than the ball diffs for me. But if you're an expert with ball diffs, then keep running the ball diffs. But I really do like the gear. It's just easier. I don't have to maintain it as much. I don't have to take it apart, check the balls, check the friction plates, make sure that they're not grooving. So that's one. Now the other thing too is, since I built this car, I built it with the damper option. So the damper, let's see, there's not enough light, but well, here you can see it. So it goes there from the bottom and then up here from the top. So the top portion is the part that is difficult to see right in here. Let me show you. So this is where it clips on, right? That's the ball stud, and it just goes straight over there. So this is the oil-filled damper. Now, originally, per the instructions, unless I read them wrong, it had a 2mm spacer right here on the top. So right here is a 2mm spacer. I may try the 2mm spacer here at the bottom. Next thing you know, I read the instructions wrong, and the spacer should have gone down here. Maybe, I have no idea. But what was going on when I had the spacer on the other side is this was much lower, and one of the things that happens, the camera, you're not going to be able to see it probably very well. Here, let me line it up this way. So there's a bit of it daylights a little. So watch that little daylight right in there that I'm just covering right now. So when the suspension articulates, let's just say it goes this way, it articulates a lot. But then once it goes this way, it articulates a lot less, but there, that damper is already hitting the chassis. So what used to happen with that spacer is the car would articulate normally this way, so full articulation. But then once you went this way, see, now it articulates more, but not as much as it does this way. So notice that. And that's because the damper hits. So that's something that I noticed later on, checking the car, is that it wouldn't articulate very much going this way. It would actually stop right about there, but this way it would articulate a lot. And I'm thinking that's what was causing a lot of my spin outs. So if you've watched some of my other F1 videos, you'll notice that I spin out like crazy. And it wasn't until just before qualifier 2 or after qualifier 2, it might have been after qualifier 2, that I removed that spacer from the top side, and car handled a lot better for the B-main. Did I do fabulously? No, but it did handle a lot more. Now, the downside is I never ran the tubes, those oil-filled tubes, so I have no idea how the car used to run with them. Probably should have run them. I have them somewhere. Now, this is a lot easier, but one of the things also is I went slightly heavier on the oil on that damper, because the previous oil, I don't remember what it was, but it was pretty light, it actually leaked. And it was a disaster, because then this thing would really articulate toward one side but not the other, because, well, it physically can't. But now with heavier oil here, let me go to something heavier, maybe some 750 CST, 800 CST, I have no idea. If one of you has recommendations, let me know. But I am thinking of trying that spacer down here to lift this so that I get more articulation. I figured why wait. So I actually paused the camera and I decided to go ahead and install it. So it already had a 1mm shim right in here. Let's see, the light, not the best. But I replaced the 1 with a 2, so now it has a 2mm spacer. And yeah, that makes, yeah, it actually made a difference. Quite a difference. If I want to put a larger spacer, actually I think 3mm would be great. The only thing is the ball stud's not long enough, so the threading's not long enough. It's the stock one that comes with it, so I would have to get something that's a little longer. So we'll see, at least a millimeter longer, whatever the stock is. Now I'm noticing this is too close as well, so I'm going to have to shim this one out, push this one out just a tad, retake my measurements. Because notice how this one right over here clears everything. Right here, this box, this one comes really, really close. I'm wondering if, yeah, it feels like it rubs slightly. So that's another modification. So keep that in mind if you're running that center damper. If you go with the 2mm over here and then the 1mm over here, you're going to have more articulation toward one side than the other. And ideally, you want the same amount of articulation. So keep that in mind. But now I'm going to go on to the race. So in this race, this is the B main. So I did start in the 6th position. There's no number there. Luckily I can count with my shoes on, since it was only up to 6 while holding the transmitter. But here we go. So I start off relatively well. I'm going to have a crash 220. I'm going to have a lot of crashes. But my pivot ball, that's not the one. This is where I pretty much just lose it. The pivot ball on the right arm fell out, so I'm not sure if you can hear it. You might be able to hear that it scrapes once in a while. Now watch this. Ooh, that was a hard hit. And I get T-boned completely. I mean, there is nothing I can do. It just scoops me up, sends me out flying. White car just takes off. Yeah, that's fun. So I'm gonna blame this crash for it. There's always something to blame. Not my driving, of course. It's probably my driving. Yeah, that was definitely a really hard hit. That's probably where I broke that front left arm. Anyway, now I have to recover. And then the white car crashed. So there we go. It happens. So that's stuff that will happen in the sport. Luckily, most of the guys here, I'm saying most of the guys just in case there's the one, are actually very nice, very cool. So even though stuff like that might happen, generally people keep a cool temper. I'm saying generally, just in case. Or at least the races that I had today. I had fun. Maybe I was just ignoring bad things if anything happened. Or it was just the heat. An icy or a slushy would have been good today. But here I go, and I am having trouble with steering. I don't think it's yet when I lose the pivot ball, because I remember it being more difficult. Now, I am going to have the FPV videos, because luckily I remembered to engage the camera this time, and there I hit that car. So I slowed down to let him pass, and then I passed him. I'm actually ahead of that car, so he was trying to let me pass. I believe that's what happened there. But the point is, I do have the FPV for qualifier. Oh, there, my pivot ball is gone. And then this one. So hopefully, I'm just going to play the beginning of those videos. So I'm just going to add them to the end of this and see. Hopefully, I can tell, or you could tell maybe, the difference before and after removing that shim that I was mentioning in the beginning, because that, in my point of view, that made a big difference. Now, a few notes that I will be talking about the car. I am running a 25.5 Helix, so that's a Fantom Helix. I love that motor. That's a very nice motor. It's a lot better than the, I think it's better than the, for F1. For F1, keep in mind. I think it's better than the Trinities that I drove in the past. I am going to swap out this motor for the next race in 2 weeks, if I can make it. I hope I can. Because I picked up a Hobbywing G3R just for kicks and giggles. So I will be using that motor and trying it out and see how that one handles. Not really for a full review, since I'm not doing, say, the same amount of racing or same amount of weather. I don't know if it's going to be hot as can be, but this motor was able to handle the 100-degree weather just fine. So there was no fade on this motor. I didn't change gearing or anything. Did well. So, well, the motor did well. I didn't do well, as you can see. Right, B main. So to give you an idea, Actually, the guy that was 5th place, he was not that far from me. I think it was maybe half a second. But my buddy, he got first in the B main, then went on to the A main. He had 2 laps on me. We're not really going to talk about it beyond this point, but that's what happened. But with the oil diff, that was a good move, I think. And then figuring out that shim problem with the damper, since I'm not running the oil tubes, that was good. And then putting slightly heavier oil, which I have to go back and check what I'm running, but I'm going to go heavier, probably something in the 700s. Did I put 400 or 600? It's heavier than before, because before it sort of leaked out. But I'm going to go even heavier. If somebody's running that damper and you have suggestions on what weight for me to try, please do. I would really appreciate it. That way I don't have to step it up every single time until I find the sweet spot. It'll just save me some time. But here we go. I am running the Exotech tires. They're good. Right? The problem is really the damper. I'm going to blame the damper for it. But F1 is a class that I just love because the cars they're probably the most scale cars. Although, I'll be honest, mini class, those M chassis, the M07, oh, those are kicks. So do watch that video if you have a chance, because I ran it next to, well, my buddy and I, one of my friends and I, ran our AM chassis against TTO2s and Euro trucks, and let's just say AM chassis is the way to go. Those things really do rock, and in that video I will explain it, but here we go.
Groove looking good. Driver's ready.
I went right through the middle and it shot through it.
Less than 5. right, driver's ready. We're going to get this one going here. Left clip 5.
well, now I have to fix that pivot bowl in the suspension and tweak some other things, but thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.
What? Oh, my hair! My arm! My rod!